Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are really getting into a case that was just, well, a source of intense frustration and mystery for nearly a decade. A UNC Chapel Hill student.
Yeah, it's a really complex one. We've gathered quite a bit for this deep dive. Police reports, forensic analysis, lots of reporter commentary too. It focuses a lot on the contradictory evidence, and the criticism the investigation faced early on.
Wait,
Our job here really is to sift through all that noise, all those confusing bits, and trace the forensic line that eventually, after 9 long years, led to an arrest.
exactly. That's the mission. Figure out why a case with actual DNA evidence right there at the scene got so tangled up in, well, circumstantial stuff and, frankly, secrecy for so long. But first, it's important to remember who Faith was. She was just 19, a third-year honors student at UNC, and a member of the Hollywossaponi Native American tribe.
hmm And she wasn't just, any student. She was incredibly driven, had a Gates Millennium Scholarship, wanted to be the first in her family to graduate college. Huge potential. So understanding her last night, that timeline, really drives home the tragedy of it all.
Okay, let's unpack that timeline. Faith lived off campus. She had a roommate, Karina Rosario. The evening of September 6, 2012. Sounds pretty normal at first. Texting her dad, studying, went to a sorority event apparently.
Right. Then, sometime after midnight, she and Rosario head out to a nightclub called The Thrill in downtown Chapel Hill. We actually have footage of them leaving there around 2:06 a.m. That's the last time Faith was seen on camera.
Okay.
Things get compressed after that. They get back to the apartment. And then around 3 a.m., a neighbor hears something. 3 loud thumps from Faith's apartment. Described it like furniture falling or maybe a heavy bag being dropped.
3 thumps. Okay, that's specific. And then things get, well, weird. The texts.
Yeah, this is a really confusing part. At 3:40 a.m., texts get sent from Faith's phone. Not Rosario's, Faith's. They go to Brandon Edwards, who was Rosario's ex.
What did they say?
It said, "Hey, B, can you come over here, please? Rosario needs you more, aha. Please let her know you care." Then a second text just correcting it.
Huh. Rosario needs you more than aha. That's odd phrasing. And from Faith's phone.
Exactly. It raises immediate questions. Was Faith sending it? Was someone else using her phone? What does aha even mean there? It just feels off. And it gets even more complicated because about 45 minutes later, around 4:25 a.m., the roommate, Rosario, she leaves the apartment.
Leaves after those noises and weird texts.
Yeah. She said she went to meet another friend, Jordan McCrary. Her explanation later was that she thought Faith was asleep in her room. And crucially, she admitted she left the apartment door unlocked when she left.
Oh, so? Okay.
Yeah. She doesn't come back until almost 11 Billiser that morning. And she's not alone. She's with another friend, Marisol Rangel. And that's when they find Faith. In her bedroom, bloodied, wrapped in a quilt, partially nude.
Oh, God. Just devastating. Isn't that the cause of death?
The autopsy confirmed it was blunt force trauma to her head. They found an empty rum bottle at the scene, which they believed was the weapon. And critically for the investigation moving forward, there was male DNA. Semen was present at the scene.
So DNA right away. You'd think that would lead somewhere fast.
You would. And the police did have an immediate suspect, Eric Tacoy Jones. Rosario's ex-boyfriend, the one the texts were sent to. Well, about. He had a history. There was a protective order against him, reports he threatened Faith specifically, and even some really troubling social media posts that night, something like asking forgiveness for sins he was about to commit.
Everything seemed to point right at him.
It really did. It looked like a classic tragic case of domestic violence spilling over. But then the DNA results came back. No match. Eric Jones's DNA did not match the male DNA found at the scene.
So just like that, the prime suspect is cleared.
Completely cleared by the physical evidence. And that's the moment the case pivots. It goes from what seemed obvious to, well, a complete mystery, dominated by confusing clues.
Yeah, it feels like everything after that point just muddied the waters instead of clearing them up.
You could almost call it like the Bermuda Triangle of the case evidence. The note, the 911 call, the voicemail. They just created years of static. Let's start with that note.
Right, the note found near her body. Super bizarre. Written on a torn piece of a paper bag.
Yeah, possibly from a local 24-hour spot called Time Out. And it just read, "I'm not stupid bitch jealous." All caps, kind of scrawled.
Wow. What did the analysis say about it?
Well, one interesting detail was that the note itself was clean. No blood on it, which is strange given the scene.
Yeah.
It suggests maybe it was written beforehand or somewhere else and then placed there. An expert suggested the handwriting showed extreme agitation, maybe triggered by being called stupid.
But then you had journalists like Tom Gasparoli, who covered this extensively, asking, why leave it at all? It seems so incriminating.
Exactly. Gasparoli floated the idea it could be a deliberate plant, a red herring meant to confuse investigators. And there was another weird thing. The word stupid looked different. It was written more clearly, more precisely than the other words.
So maybe not written in the same state of mind.
Or
Was there?
maybe by someone else. Or perhaps part of it was written by someone calmer, maybe even female, some speculated. It just adds layers of uncertainty. Who writes that and why leave it?
Okay, so the note is a puzzle. What about the 911 call?
That became another point of contention, especially after the transcript was released. Gasparoli again raised questions. He pointed out that the caller, who identified herself as Rosario, never actually uses Faith's name. Not once. She just keeps saying, my friend, or her friend.
Wait, really? If you found your roommate like that, wouldn't you be screaming her name? That feels unnatural.
It does feel strange to many people. And there was more. The caller seemed really hesitant, almost resistant, to touch the body, even when the dispatcher was pleading with her to check if Faith was breathing.
That's chilling.
Yeah, and Gasparoli even wondered if maybe it wasn't Rosario making the call initially, but the other friend, Marisol Rangel, who you could hear sobbing uncontrollably in the background. Maybe Rangel made the call and only identified herself as Rosario later. Again, doesn't prove anything, right? People react strangely under stress. But it absolutely fueled speculation and doubt.
So the note is weird. The 911 call is weird. What was the third piece? The pocket dial.
All right, the pocket dial or voicemail, whatever you want to call it, it was a 3-minute recording, apparently made accidentally on Faith's phone around 1:23 a.m. that night.
So this would have been before they even left the club.
According to the phone's timestamp, yes. But the content is what became so controversial. An independent audio expert, Arlo West, he enhanced the recording. He claimed he could hear things. He said he heard Faith crying for help, another female voice saying, I think she's dying, and a male voice saying, do it anyhow.
Whoa, that's incredibly disturbing. Did he hear names?
West claimed he did. He said he heard the names Eric, the ex-boyfriend, and Rosie, which was Rosario's nickname. He was convinced this recording captured the actual attack or moments leading up to it.
Okay, if that's true, that blows the timeline wide open. Why didn't the police run with that?
Well, the police pushed back hard. They stuck to the timestamp. They said 1:23 a.m. means it happened at the club. They pointed to music metadata on the recording as proof. They basically dismissed West's findings as misinterpretations of muffled club noise, maybe drunken talk.
But West had counter-arguments.
He did. He pointed out that phone software back then was known to have timestamp glitches sometimes. And critically, he argued the audio just didn't sound like a nightclub. He said there was no heavy bass, no clinking glasses, none of that ambient roar you'd expect. So you had this stark disagreement. A forensic audio expert hearing a potential murder recording versus the official police stance based on the timestamp.
Man, a confusing note, a strange 911 call, a contested voicemail. It's like every piece of potential evidence just created more questions.
Exactly. And when the evidence itself is so confusing, where does the focus shift? It shifts to the investigation itself.
Right. Which leads us to the whole controversy around the sealed records.
The Chapel Hill police decided to seal all the case records.
Right.
This was unusual for them, and the local media immediately started challenging it in court right from 2012. They wanted transparency.
And the speculation was that the police were hiding something.
That was definitely the implication from media reports. Reporters suggested the seal might be covering up, potential mistakes made in the crucial early hours and days. Several things were pointed out. Allegations that they only searched Faith's apartment initially, not the area around it, like the woods nearby. That Faith's car was left unsecured for a time.
Okay, those sound like potential issues.
But the big one, the one that really stood out, was waiting 19 months, nearly 2 years, to formally request the security footage from the parking lot of the Thrill nightclub.
19 months. You're kidding.
Nope. And by that time, of course, the footage had been recorded over long ago. Any evidence of who Faith and Rosario might have interacted with outside the club or if someone followed them? Gone.
That's just astounding. It makes you understand why people started questioning the investigation.
It absolutely does. And it probably explains why there seemed to be a sense of relief among some locals when the SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, was brought in to assist in late 2013. Some people felt the SBI agents were, better trained, asked better questions.
Okay, so lots of criticism, lost evidence. But through all this, they still had that original DNA sample, right? That didn't go away.
That was the constant. And in 2016, they tried something relatively new with it. They used DNA phenotype technology. They worked with Parabon Nanolabs and their snapshot system.
Phenotype. Remind us what that does again.
So instead of just matching DNA to a known suspect, phenotype analysis uses the DNA itself to predict what the person might look like. It predicts ancestry, hair color, eye color, skin tone, face shape, even freckling. Basically, building a description from the genes left behind.
Like a genetic sketch artist.
Pretty much, yeah. And the results were very specific for the DNA from the Hedgepeth scene.
What did it predict?
It predicted the suspect was male, with very strongly Native American and European mixed ancestry, or possibly Latino. The ancestry markers lean towards Mexican, Colombian, or Iberian heritage. It also predicted, with high confidence, like over 80%, that he likely had black hair, olive-toned skin, and few or no freckles.
So not just a generic description, that's quite detailed. Did it confirm any police theories?
It kind of reinforced what police had been saying publicly. They believed the killer knew Faith, was likely in her social circle, and this wasn't just some random attack by a stranger. The phenotype didn't point to someone completely outside those demographics. Of course, even with this image, speculation still swirled, especially around the roommate, Rosario. Because of the texts, the 911 call issues, leaving the door unlocked.
Yeah, those details are hard to forget.
Right, and reporters, like Gasparoli again, cited police sources as late as 2017, saying they still talked to Rosario regularly and believed she might know more than she was letting on.
So 9 years of all this noise. Conflicting clues, sealed files, criticism, speculation, a genetic portrait, and then, suddenly, a resolution.
Just like that, in September 2021. It almost came out of the blue. Chapel Hill police arrested a man named Miguel Salguero Olivares. He was 28 at the time, living in nearby Durham.
Salguero Olivares. Had his name ever come up before? Was he one of the people they looked at initially?
Never. Not publicly, anyway. He wasn't on anyone's radar as far as the public knew. He wasn't part of that initial circle of friends or acquaintances they focused on.
So how did they finally connect him after 9 years?
This is the really striking part. It wasn't some old clue suddenly making sense. It was new data. Salguero Olivares had been arrested for drunk driving in Wake County just the month before his arrest for Faith's murder. And as part of that DWI arrest process, a DNA sample was taken from him. Standard procedure in many places now.
Wait, so a recent unrelated arrest?
Exactly. That routine DNA sample was entered into this system, COGIS, the National DNA Database. And it hit. It matched the unknown male DNA profile from the semen found at Faith Hedgepeth's crime scene 9 years earlier.
Wow.
And not only that, but they also found his palm print apparently matched a print found on the murder weapon, that empty rum bottle.
So the DNA in a print, that's definitive.
Yeah, extremely definitive. After nearly a decade of confusing notes and voicemails and theories, it was the cold, hard science of DNA and fingerprint analysis, triggered by a completely separate incident, that broke the case wide open.
It's just incredible. It cuts through everything else. And the legal case against him moved forward.
Yes, and it actually evolved. Just recently, in late 2024, the original murder indictment was amended. They added more charges: first-degree burglary, first-degree rape, and first-degree sexual offense.
Okay, so that reframes the motive significantly, doesn't it? Away from maybe an argument or jealousy, which the note hinted at.
Precisely. It points towards a violent sexual assault as the primary element, with murder occurring during that crime. It paints a very different and arguably much darker picture than some of the earlier theories based on the circumstantial clues.
When you step back and look at the whole thing, it really highlights that tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between the public wanting answers, the media fighting for access through the sealed records, and the police needing secrecy, maybe sometimes too much secrecy, for their investigation. That push and pull seemed to define this case for years.
It really did. And what's so fascinating, ultimately, is how all those incredibly dramatic, confusing pieces of evidence, the note, the voicemail, the 911 call things, that generated so much debate and suspicion for so long, in the end, they were basically irrelevant to finding the suspect. The DNA match bypassed all of it.
Yeah, the forensic science just cut right through the noise.
Completely. It underscores the power of that kind of evidence.
So it leaves you, the listener, with something to think about, right? Here we have a case with undeniable delays, potential missteps, lost evidence, years of frustration. But the final answer didn't come from untangling those old knots. It came from technology, DNA databases, and frankly, chance, a routine traffic stop years later. It makes you wonder, how often do investigations get bogged down by human error or complexity only for science and maybe just a bit of luck to deliver the truth down the road?